We are here in Hyde Park at the Lanpher Memorial Library, and behind me is a wind phone. It's a windy day. It's a good day to talk about this. It's been here almost 2 years, and it's a way to connect with loved ones who are no longer with us, or just to process and express your feelings, your grief, whatever it is you're going through.
Hi, Graham. I just wanted to let you know that I miss you. And I love you.
Well, the wind phone came about really when I read this book. It's The Phone Booth in Mr. Hirota's Garden. This is a fictional story of a little boy who lives in Japan, and when the tsunami came through, his father died. And so he uses the wind phone as a way to heal and grieve.
It's like this public recognition that people need to be able to grieve.
Oh, so wind phone started in Japan. After the death of his cousin in 2010, a man named Itaru Sasaki built a phone booth in his garden. I'm reading right from this book, to deal with his grief. Although the phone was disconnected, Sasaki believed his words rode in the wind to his loved one. A year later, when the tsunami struck his coastal town, thousands of mourners flocked to the phone booth, longing to connect with their missing loved ones. You know, this story spread throughout the world, and wind phones started popping up all over the country, all over the world. And now we have one here in Hyde Park, Vermont.
I'm showing you the phone. So this is the sacred space.
Yeah.
This phone actually, before it made its home here, lived in our house for a while because Mariana was working on it.
And I had never heard of a wind phone before. And we were deep in the pandemic. Things were feeling really hard and very isolated, and people were grieving all the time.
I thought about how libraries are these trusted places, and they would be a perfect spot for a wind phone. And then we had a funding opportunity through the Vermont Department of Libraries and the Institute for Museum and Library Services.
I live in Hyde Park Village, and my wife and I and our 2 kids. So in the middle of the pandemic, in the middle of everything else, launch this campaign, get elected. Spring, summer of 2022, everything just sort of caught up to me. Fundamentally change or break up with just about every meaningful relationship in my life. Fundamentally changing my marriage, to my work, to the legislature ultimately. I think it was the fall of 2022, she finally was like, we're getting it installed. And I showed up the first day and just had this extremely profound healing experience just the first time I spent time in there. I started going every single day. I went every day for weeks, and then it was probably 5 days a week for weeks beyond that. My relationship with the wind phone taught me my personal sort of framework now of understanding of grief and loss. It's just a feeling now. It's oh, time to visit the wind phone, you know?
My dog's name was Klaus. He died in November of 2023.
Hi, Klaus. It's Mom. I'm just calling to let you know that we miss you a lot.
Here you are in the grief space, moving through it. I think I was unsure about whether or not I was even interested in the wind phone in the beginning, because I like to process well in motion. I'm a big walk and talker. Then I went in there, and it does feel a little bit like a time machine, where you're suddenly transported into a different space. The thing that I actually have gone in and talked about a bunch is the flood from July. I live in Johnson, which is a town that got really badly hit by the flood. I was super fortunate that my house is fine, but I was trapped at my house, and I was trapped away from my child, which felt really stressful. And I'm right on the Lamoille River, and so I watched 500-gallon propane tanks float by with propane spouting in the air. I watched raw sewage float by. I watched trash go by, people's houses go by. An ongoing process of loss and sadness and grief. You can grieve as long as you want to, as long as you need to. We sort of societally think people are going to be done grieving quickly. And I think there's something about being all cozy in a box. It's like being in the weighted blanket or something. It's a safe little space. And I love that there's a heart on the phone, because I think that when we can process grief, we can come back to that place of love.
I made some rocks for the Memory Rock Garden. I want to bring them out. Our neighbor Charlie died. Lois was one of our volunteers. Her phone number is actually her name spelled backwards. Alma was a volunteer who also loved cats, and Dorothy was another volunteer. And we lost, all these folks died this year. So I want to put these rocks out in the garden today. It's such a sunny day, it's perfect. We've lost a lot of really special people in our library community, so I have called those folks.
Hey Lois, I have been thinking about you a lot lately.
We've had people from all over the place. We had a child who came with his family and he really missed his cat Pepper. It's confidential and private, so people can use it whenever they feel like it.
It's open 24/7.
It's also hard to access healthcare sometimes, right? And mental health care. For a rural community, it can be really powerful.
Someone who once described it to me as, I feel like I've stepped into a postcard every day in the village of Hyde Park. Yeah, I've been the library director here for 20 years.
Amy is a magical human.
Our librarian is a very special person.
Libraries are places that people trust. Librarians tend to be trusted leaders in the community, so we get to share in everybody's joys and sorrows and challenges and celebrations.
Libraries are like hubs of information and of programming and of community.
We kind of hold up our communities in this quiet way because libraries are for everyone.
I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening. Bye.
The Wind Phone at the Lanpher Library is an extension of the library, where it is a space that we want people to feel cared for and comforted.
All right, bud, we love you.
You can visit the Wind Phone here at the Lanpher Memorial Library in Hyde Park, and we will get stuck in Vermont with you again real soon. I grew up in Johnson, so this neck of the woods is awfully familiar to me.
Like, this is how I talked to my grandma, was always on the phone.
Totally,
You know?
yeah.
So it's like, it makes perfect sense. I would talk to her again. And I like, I could almost hear her. I was like, is that her? Like,
Yeah, right? I know, she's like on the other end.